What exactly is gender equality?
Gender equality, known as the equality of sexes and Sustainable Development Goal number 5, is the state of equal ease of access to resources and opportunities regardless of gender, which includes decision making and economic participation. The state of valuing different behaviors, aspirations, and needs equally. Gender equality is more than representation. It is strongly tied to women's rights and often requires policy changes. The global movement for gender equality has not incorporated the proposition of genders besides women and men, and even the different genders' identities outside the binary. UNICEF says that gender equality means women and men enjoy the same rights, resources, opportunities, and protections. It doesn't require that girls and boys, men and women would be the same or be treated equally alike. Achieving gender equality requires eliminating harmful practices against women and girls, which includes sex trafficking, sexual violence, gender wage gap, and other oppression tactics.
UNFPA stated that despite many international agreements affirming their human rights, women are still much more likely to be poor and illiterate than men. They have less access to property ownership, credit, training, and employment. Women were being labeled as childbearers and homemakers and not breadwinners of the family. They are far from being politically active and more likely to be victims of domestic violence.
In 1405, an advocate for gender equality, Christine Tebizan stated in her book, The Book of the City of Ladies, that oppression of women is founded on irrational prejudice, which points out numerous advances in society created by women. In 1774, the Shakers, an evangelical group, practiced segregation of sexes and strict celibacy, were the early practitioners of gender equality. They expanded from a Quaker community in England to the US. Joseph Meacham, the head of Shakers Central in America, revealed that sexes should be equal. He reconstructed the society to balance rights with his female counterpart, Lucy Wright. In this society, women did not have to be controlled by men. In the late 19th century, the movement towards gender equality began with the suffrage movement in Western cultures, which allows women to vote and be elected. During the post-war era, the women's liberation movement and feminism have created a movement to recognize women's rights since World War II. Many conventions were adopted by UN which promoted gender equality. In 1960, the Convention Against Discrimination in Education was adopted and came into force in 1962 and 1968. In 1979, the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women was adopted by United Nations General Assembly. It was described as an international Bill of Rights which came into force in September 1981.
On June 25, 1993, a Human Rights Declaration was adopted by the World Conference on Human Rights, called the Vienna Declaration and Program of Action. In the same year, the Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly.
On October 31st of 2000, the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325 was adopted, which deals with the rights and protection of women and girls during and after armed conflicts. African Union adopted the Maputo Protocol on 2005, which guarantees comprehensive rights to women that includes the right to take part in political process, to be in social and political equality with men, and to control their reproductive health and end to female genital mutilation.
From 2014 to 2017, the Council of Europe came up with 5 strategic objectives. 1. Combat gender stereotypes and sexism. 2. Combat and prevent violence against women. 3. Guarantee equal access of women to justice. 4. Achieve balanced participation of women and men in political and public decision making. 5. Achieve gender mainstreaming in all policies and measures. The notions of gender equality and degree of achievements in a country is very complex because there are some countries who doesn't have a high level of gender equality, which means when categorizing countries by the level of equality they achieve, caution should be considered. Now, when we talk about gender equality on a worldwide scale, the topic could branch out to many definitions and angles. At a general level, gender equality usually refers to the imposition of equal rights and opportunities for both men and women especially. These topics can range from work opportunities and influence on certain things, or the enforcement of safe and sound working conditions.
Through this SDG, we can spread awareness about this major issue unfolding throughout the globe. Though year by year the gender gap closes, as recorded and stated by Statistica.com, gender inequality is still prevalent in many places.
In the Global Gender Gap Index tracked by Statistica, where it follows important factors or key dimensions, namely economic participation and opportunity, educational attainment, health and survival, and power empowerment. In this index updated to 2021, Iceland ranked first in the index with a 0.89 score, meaning it has the environment most hospitable and equal for both genders. The largest gender gap scored in the index goes to Yemen, with the lowest index of 0.494, meaning the complete opposite of the environments when we compare it to Iceland.
Economic opportunities and political influence aside, the cases of domestic violence have spiked up since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. According to UNWomen.org, 1 in 3 women worldwide experience physical or sexual violence, mostly by an intimate partner. Violence against women and girls is obviously a human rights violation and a huge opposition and obstacle to what the SDG is aiming for. Services and collective effort from different organizations and the people themselves have been in the lines to stop the gender inequality that's been happening, with shelters and helplines built and founded and many more services that could help in a way.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg. In a worldwide perspective, there's only so much a singular organization can master and rally for a global movement. The citizens of each country ourselves need to get into the action to help and prevent further gender disparity.
The Philippines was once ranked as the 7th most gender equal country in the world in 2016. However, a recent study revealed that our rank has gone down to 16th out of 153 countries. Despite having such a relatively high rank, gender bias and discrimination is still very much evident.
In a study conducted by Jose Ramon Albert and Jana Florviz Manos, they analyzed the equality of economic opportunities between men and women. The results show that men still dominate the labor force in number compared to women. 4 in 5 men of working age are employed, whereas only half of women aged 15 and over are in the labor force.
In another review administered by the researchers of the Cebu Technological University, they evaluated the relationship between violence against women and the status of gender equality in the Philippines. Jabin Daguma and his colleagues gathered the necessary data from 2006 to 2017, and it's when the Philippines was ranked 7th most gender equal country in the world. Despite being at the peak of gender equality, 40,220 cases of violence against women were reported in 2017 alone. Take note that these are the only reported cases and do not include the unreported events.
Throughout the years, it is evident that the gender gap has narrowed down but has not been completely eliminated. Many countries, including the Philippines, have a long journey ahead of them before they are able to completely treat both men and women as equals. Through this video, we aim to influence others to assist in making a difference and treat both genders alike. Worldwide change starts within oneself, which is why we need to ask ourselves if we see gender as someone inferior and someone superior. Once this ideology is no longer present, through simple acts of informing others, we can further aid in reducing the gender gap index and solve our sustainable development goal number 5.